Welcome to the SocietyPod, a podcast for entrepreneurs, marketers, and leaders. Here's your host, Jessica Yarmy.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of the SocietyPod. My guest today has spent her entire career in the fitness industry, from personal trainer to general manager to founder to advisor to writer, content creator, like all of the things. She's now the vice president of global key accounts at ABC Fitness. Welcome to the show, Melissa Knowles.
Hey, so happy to be here.
This has been a long time coming. I feel like you and I chit chat all the time, and we're just now hitting record.
Yeah, it's like we're always traveling in the same circles and connecting in the same threads, but we've never made it official.
I do stalk you on LinkedIn. I have a couple things I want to talk about with some of our recent LinkedIn exchanges, but let's start with your career. And is this path intentional? Did you know you were going to have this lifelong journey in the fitness industry?
Absolutely not. It's an accidental career path for me. So when I was in grad school, my intention was to be a professor. I was going to finish my master's degree, go into the doctorate path, teach college, either in biomechanics or motor learning, and do research. During my master's degree, I took a part-time gig as a trainer at a local, old school mom and pop gym. My training pay was something like $12 an hour. It was pretty depressing. And then I was also paying minimum wage to show people the gym and teach them how to use equipment. So at that time, very much still a side hustle because I've always loved fitness. I took on my first role while doing my dissertation and got promoted into PT manager and got my first bonus check and realized, sales, this could be a thing. I'm making as much now in this part-time gig as I would as an adjunct professor, and I really was loving what I did. So I just kind of took the leap and kept going and never looked back. And here we are 20 plus years later, and it's taken many twists and turns. I am going to continue to hang my hat, hopefully till I retire, whenever that is.
Where does the love for fitness come from? Were you an athlete growing up?
Absolutely. Every sport my school offered, every season I was playing a sport. Very much always an active kid. Was very much interested in weightlifting before they were even letting girls do that in the rural high school scene. Definitely fitness has always kind of been the through line in both my personality and path.
So where you're so in the mix in the fitness world, how do you see it different now than the way it was? Or what trends are you seeing now that are interesting to you?
It has changed so much. Our industry is still quite young in terms of maturity as a space. Back in the late 90s, early 2000s, I always described it as the Wild West. There were no systems, there was no tooling. People were just out there winging it. And the tech space has grown by leaps and bounds in the last 2 decades. And I think we've seen an even bigger leap across the post-COVID years. So wearables, how connected people are to their fitness, the blurred line between going to the gym and focusing on your entire wellness, those lines have been blurred. So it's no longer people are joining the gym to lose weight for an event or begrudgingly because they have to. They're starting to think about wellness across all of the spectrums. And then they're also expecting the data to stand up to the efforts that they're putting in. I think that confluence of tech and then information being so readily available online, it's both changed the consumer and it's changed our offering as well.
I was talking with Jim Crowell about this recently because he's big in the wearable space and he's also big in the performance results, training kind of space. And you almost have a place where there's too much information. And then there's too many places to get that information. And can we make that information useful to drive results versus just data for data's sake? Is that something that you guys think about on your end?
Tech should support the core product offering, which I think in our industry will always be service. That customer comes in hopefully with a set of goals that you've unpacked. And then the data that you're getting either from wearables or from your MMS, and hopefully nowadays leveraging some AI, all that does is guide you in how to interact with that customer. So you can't ever really strip away that human element. Looking at a page of your stats whether it be like your sleep data or HRV, or we're doing some heart rate monitoring during a workout, all of that's meaningless unless you can tie it to the goal of the consumer and be able to show them results and outcomes based on that data. I think stripping it down to like a simple subset of metrics and then being able to make that meaningful to the average consumer is where we'll hit that sweet spot.
I love the opportunity that AI brings to this space, because I think we used to, in the fitness industry, batch people together and give them numbers based on, what batch you're in, whether you're a beginner, whether you're an athlete. We kind of had broad buckets. But now with AI, it really seems like we're going to hit a world where we can get really personalized with our numbers and with our recommendations. And even so, the heart rate max chart that's on all of the cardio equipment, that's just these broad buckets of like, here's a range that you should be in. You could really start to get hyper prescriptive with it.
Yeah, and even things like, how does the consumer want you to interact with them? So we can learn, is this a person that's expecting like pure human outreach to check in on them? Do they want to consume in a more digital-based environment? Do they just want you to put something in front of them to execute? Or are they going to need a bit of hand-holding? So it's beyond just the biometrics. We're starting to learn about where to meet our customer and how they want us to engage with them, which I think is really important. But we still have to engage. So one of the things that I don't want to see the industry doing is thinking that AI can replace all of the people that are in our clubs and in our boutiques, because without the people, we really have lost the special sauce that makes our industry what it is.
We've seen some examples of that with kiosks and setting up brands for failure. Not mentioning any names. We're coming off of HFA recently, and I know ABC had a big presence at HFA, and you guys brought Alex Rodriguez to the stage. What takeaways did you have from his speech and his experience with athletics?
It's really just neat to see the continued blurring of the lines between both the athletic sector, our fitness sector, healthcare. It's starting to be a continuum now. So seeing people that don't draw a distinction between training as an athlete and training as, a mom of young kids, and seeing our space as investable is super exciting. The energy around HFA was insane. This is one of the only years I've missed with some conflicting travels. I have a bit of FOMO going on, but I love that we were able to put like a smaller VIP event together where he got to have some really direct contact with some of the key stakeholders at the brands that we love and support. And then also the energy around the innovation that's going on, specifically in the AI space and with partnerships, was super exciting. I'm sure you've seen the news on our partnership with TrueMed. So being able to let consumers more easily leverage their HSA funds is both good for our customer and great for the end user. And then the partnership with MyFitnessPal, kind of going back to being able to see the whole person and what they're up to, I think super exciting. So us looking to like make a whole ecosystem to better inform these club owners and operators on who's entering in through their doors, and then to be able to support that end user, super exciting.
How has your fitness journey evolved from the 20 plus years ago to now?
A ton. 45 now, so I'm going through all of the things that folks in our age bracket are. I never thought I'd have so many conversations around perimenopause. I've become like a virtual expert out of necessity. I'm an older mother, so I have a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old. My body's changed a lot, and what's important to me in terms of what I expect from my body has changed a lot. I'd say in my 20s, 30s, it was the typical like, how lean and skinny can I get? I see my abs. Can I fit into this outfit that I think I should be wearing? And now I care a lot more about how I feel, how strong I feel. Can I keep up with my kids? Can I toss my enormous 4-year-old over my head? Can I have the energy to chase them? Am I sleeping well? Am I managing my stress? It's going along the lines of where I feel like our industry shifting into total wellness versus like fitness. Get on the treadmill and and run till you can't anymore. So, and it changes every year. Like I'll get into something and get bored with it and I want to go try something else. And, maybe one quarter it's yoga I get super interested in, and then I'll sprinkle in rowing the next quarter. So just keeping it fresh.
I think it's great that the industry's moving in that direction also. It's definitely more of like a holistic feel, even at an HFA, where there's representation of things like red light therapy. Reflecting back, if I were to talk to my 25-year-old self, I would say, like, go easy on your knees, like cut down the miles. Let's have a little bit of balance between crushing it and crushing a recovery practice. Like there was no recovery practice for me back then. And I see younger people now going into their own fitness journey with a better balance. And I think that's setting them up for the longer term success. That like longevity play is definitely going to be there for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think how I used to train, and I cringe, it was very much more is more. And if I don't come out of a workout feeling like I'm about to collapse into a puddle on the floor, then boy, that wasn't a good workout. Nowadays, the days I have mobility work scheduled in, or I'm going to take like a zone 2 cardio recovery ride on my bike, I look forward to those days because, to your point, the joints, they catch up with you at some point. People today are so much better informed. Like Gen Z, what they know about nutrition and taking care of their bodies for the long term is so much better than what we had back then. So it's exciting.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I just wish I had those 20 years back to like do it differently. We talked about your evolution in fitness, but I want to kind of pivot and go into your evolution as a leader. I know you're super passionate now about healthy leadership and servant leadership. How do you see your leadership style now versus maybe where it was 10 years ago?
It's probably like a lot of folks that started in leadership quite young. I was operating under the impression that I had to have all of the answers, and I very much led in like a here's the mission, here's what we need to do, now go execute. So everything was like top down. And I felt very uncomfortable with admitting that I didn't have an answer, or vulnerable if I had to ask for help or insight. And that is so completely opposite from how I lead today. I strive to surround myself with smart people, people that are far better at things that I'm not so good at. I respect them, I value their opinion, and I want them involved in the decisions we're making. I'm not afraid to admit that I just don't know something. So I definitely lead with a lot more vulnerability now, and that translates even into my relationships with the leaders above me, like pushing back, questioning decisions. If I don't agree with something or have a counterpoint, opening my mouth, where as a young leader I probably would have just sat there and assumed that they knew best and I need to go execute. I think the biggest shift for me has just been vulnerability and a willingness to let my team be more involved in key decisions, which I think just makes for a better outcome for everyone.
26-year-old who's listening to this, who wants to become a leader or maybe has a team, earlier you can figure that out, that it is okay to ask for help, that it is okay to say you don't know something, especially when you're younger. When we're young, we almost try to overcompensate and like, I know it all, I can do everything. But it really truly is the opposite. The sooner you can figure that out, the sooner you're going to be building really cool teams and really cool cultures. And culture is something you and I have chit-chatted about recently online, purpose-driven culture, and like how to create that and like how to instill that in your teams. How do you kind of approach building a purpose-driven culture?
Well, first, I'll start with one of the things that I love about ABC is our 3 core values aren't just plastered up on a website somewhere and nobody even knows what they are, and they don't get pulled into our daily decisions or ways of working. Well, starting with 3 core values that I feel passionately about as a person that also translate throughout the org and touch every member of our team, I think is wildly important. One team, we all need to be able to roll up our sleeves and pitch in, regardless of title or function, If it's for the good of the company and it's for the good of the customer, we need to all make it happen. Growth mindset, never stop learning. So much I still want to learn and try and do. So being curious and constantly seeking like learning and growth. And then the third one, which I think is the hardest, is best life. So realizing that we are not just our work selves, we have a whole other life outside of our careers, and you can't separate those two. There is some blending. So I think this notion of work-life balance is probably a bit misguided. There's never going to be true balance, but striving for harmony. Some days home Melissa life wins and some days work life Melissa wins, but at the end of a year, a month, a quarter, whatever, they should be harmonious. So thinking about how to instill those with the team that I directly manage, that best life one is the hardest because you really have to lead that by example. So if you go back to your training question, young Melissa was going to do a workout that just grinded her into the ground as hard as she could. I had that same energy in my career. Like I wore my burnout as a badge of honor. The more hours I could work, the less I slept. Maturity and time lets you know that that's not sustainable. So setting boundaries for myself, letting my team see me do that, so then they feel that it's okay for them to do that, I think is so important. People need to be encouraged to take time away, to turn notifications off, because that allows us to show up to work as our best selves, and that permeates the culture.
And what an amazing industry to be sitting in to bring that to life. I think about that a lot in my pursuit of balance. Nothing about my world is balanced, but it's more that I'll toggle between environments, I'll toggle between different clients that I'm working with, or I'll move within the fitness space in a way that allows my brain to feel like it's balanced. Everyday workouts, like to me, is personal time, but then it's also professional time. We're so blessed to be in an industry that lets us blur that line a little bit between like what is in your personal world and what is in your professional world, because we love that fitness element that ties both of it together.
Yeah, and I think one of the really big advantages of work from home and us being a fully distributed workforce, it allows us to let people embrace the kind of work cadences and timings that work best for them. So do you get your best work done in the morning? Well, that's when you should schedule your focus time for that. Maybe you can take customer calls more in the afternoon. I used to be an early morning workout person, but now I've shifted to knowing if I get like a midday workout in, it's almost like a reset of my brain. And I can come back energized and ready to get through some serious heavy lifting in the afternoon. And I do my best thinking when I'm working out. If I have a problem and I step away and go for a run or do a heavy lift session, 9 times out of 10, I'll get to an answer there versus sitting in front of my computer.
I totally agree and have felt that exact same thing. I feel like as an industry, we have such an opportunity to bring up young talent within that kind of culture, within that best life culture, whether it's through ABC or whether it's like the fitness industry in general. But yet, like talent is something we struggle with. So how do you see, even like using Gen Z as the example, like how do you see your leadership needing to change as you're trying to bring young leaders into the industry or up through your teams?
And this isn't just a Gen Z thing, but I think they've brought it more to the forefront. They need to be actively involved in the planning of their career. Back in the day, it's like, oh, I'll just grind at this company and on one day they'll chip me up the corporate ladder and I'll get promoted. That doesn't exist anymore. We should be having conversations about what that person wants out of their career, what they're interested in, whether that resides on my team, a different function, outside of the company. We should be focused on where that career path's going to lead. The days of somebody working at a company for, their entire career and retiring, that's done. Gen Z is very willing to make a change if they don't feel valued and fulfilled in their job. So it's up to us to engage them, include them on that career trajectory. And if we see limitations within ABC, obviously, I still care about what that person's next step is. Too many people come into this industry, they get disillusioned, they don't see opportunity to grow, they come back out, and it's rinse and repeat. We need to keep our talent and show them that there is a path in this industry to build a great career.
And connect them to a purpose-driven
Absolutely.
culture, and I think there's so many opportunities for us to build stronger cultures and then bring talent up through that culture or like involve them in creating that culture. As you think about your ABC team and the culture that you guys have with your 3 core values, are there any hacks that you have that you've used to reinforce a strong corporate culture or reinforce a strong team culture?
I think safety, like psychological safety, is pretty important. So if I'm saying, I want to hear what you think, I want you to challenge me when you don't agree, or you have a counterpoint, or you just want to talk something through. Me saying that, but then somebody feeling like they're being dismissed or not heard when they actually do speak up, that's not going to enforce the culture that we want. Also, an environment where it's okay to fail. Like, you're not going to get it right 100% of the time. Smart experimentation. You have an idea, you want to try it out, great, let's try it out. Hopefully it works. If not, we can come back together and learn and talk about what we want to try next. I think safety, which kind of ties into the theme of authenticity and vulnerability, like people feeling like they're working for and with people and not from like some big corporate entity that doesn't care about them.
I could see your team feeling very safe with you as a leader. You come across like that to me. So I'm sure your team thrives in that kind of environment. The other thing that we chatted about recently, and that I saw you posted about recently on LinkedIn, was attached to context switching. Maybe this goes to your developer brain or like your art versus science brain. How do you approach context switching in your calendar? And then do you have any productivity hacks that you want to share?
Struggle with this. So do as I say, right? It's an everyday challenge. I think some of the things I highlight on LinkedIn are certainly the strategies I take. So one, understanding when I do my best thinking, and that's when I put my focus time and block it out. If I have a big project that's going to require me to really focus. I'm writing an account plan for a customer, or we have an EBR coming up, that needs my full attention. Not being afraid to turn off notification. If something is truly burning down, people will find me. I don't need to have Slack on, 100% of the time. Not every email instantaneous response as I hear an email notification going off in the background. Knowing that not everything has to be immediately and being able to focus in this world where we have so much distraction and notification going on. And then the other one that I didn't mention on that post is I prioritize the one-to-ones with my team. Generally, when the week gets busy, those could be the meetings that could very easily fall off your calendar. And, in lieu of a customer meeting, or I'm just feeling burnt out for the day and I'd like a little bit of my calendar back. Those are my team members, and they're the most important part of what I'm responsible in my role. So making sure I make time for what is most important, which is on that part of my responsibilities.
I love this topic, and I think the science around it is going to be something that's a hot topic for the upcoming years, because my default is more of a ADD default, and I context switch constantly. But then I've kind of built my world around the fact that I context switch. When I need focus moments, like in a one-on-one conversation, I'll use some of your other like culture and fitness hacks of like, okay, I'm going to take this call outside because then I can like focus more. My boy is 14 now. When I watch him on his computer, he toggles between screens so crazy fast. And I think in your post, you said it takes your brain 25 minutes to context switch. And I feel like with how the screen generations are being raised, I feel like that time to recover from a context switch is so much faster than it maybe has been in the past. How is that going to change our work worlds, and how is that going to change our teams and how we structure our days? And is there going to be focus going forward, or is it really going to be just this chaotic landscape of like switch?
Bonkers to watch with mine. Even my 4-year-old, when he is like playing a game on his tablet, like I watch him play, but he's also watching what his sister's doing, and he's thinking about his next and I'm like, your brain is so loud. I don't know what it's going to mean for the future. We've already started to see some of it influence onboarding. Gen Z is not going to sit through a 4-hour webinar on some training topic. They're just not. They want, 3-minute or less video. If you can get it even shorter, better, short bursts. I mean, it's very much like TikTok Reels generation. So they need bite-sized nuggets, and that's influencing how we talk to our consumers, but it's also influencing how we train and engage with our team. So yeah, it's changing. Your talk about going outside, I have to do that on a one-to-one. Most of the time I have my walking pad out. And it's great to get steps in, but it also prevents me from looking at what's in my inbox, from looking at Slack to see if somebody's pings me on something, because that person really does deserve my full attention. And I know what my tendencies are. So I try to protect myself from that. And walking does seem to help.
A walking pad is definitely on my Christmas list for
Highly
sure.
recommend. That the standing desk adapter with the walking pad is the ultimate combo.
All right, I'll report back when I get that full setup going. I love my standing desk. I don't typically walk. And actually, I should podcast and walk because there's no reason you can't. You know, you could just be like walking and talking. So I want to kind of flip into you as an entrepreneur, because you have this like entrepreneurial edge to you. So you built Gym HQ, and this is a few years ago now, but I'm sure there's some learnings from that experience that maybe are burned into your heart or into your psyche. What are the main learnings that you pulled from that experience?
The first is from something that seems really bad, like a bad situation you've been placed in, something good can spring. Gym HQ was born out of basically a massive layoff that I was being asked to do for the team that I currently worked on, and just the heartbreaking position I was put in to let go team members that I'd invested in, they'd invested in me, and I was, with very little warning, letting them know that they didn't have a job anymore. At the same time, wondering if I was going to have a job for much longer. So taking all of the learnings and the great product that my team pushed out through that employer, quickly pivoting. So that's probably the second lesson. First, something good can come out of something bad. Two, pivot when you need to. When you know that the course you're on isn't going to yield something good, find a new course. So over the course of a week, wrote a business plan, put a pitch deck together for this new business, and then pitched my current employer on becoming our first customer, showing them some savings, which didn't hurt. And then over the next week, moving over a weekend with a U-Haul to a new office. It was incredibly fast, scary, and rewarding. The goal was, once we were established and running for a few months, is I want to sell this at some point. My next target on my career is I wanted to get in the tech space. So oddly enough, I dreamed of ABC Fitness buying us. Like that was the ultimate goal. Maybe in 5 years, ABC will see the value, they'll buy us. A competitor got there first and bought us at 18 months. And then I ended up joining their team to run professional services and ultimately operations. So it's probably the best Cinderella story of starting a business that's ever been told, like a rags to riches. But I also have an L on my board too. I went into franchising with big dreams, and it didn't pan out. Like a confluence of probably different decisions I would have made, to hiring misalignments, all a perfect storm, and ended up having to exit that and take a pretty big loss. So they're not all W's. Entrepreneurship is a lonely existence, and I think if you talk to most people, they probably have more L's than W's on their board. And it's that resilience to keep coming back that I think is ingrained somewhere in people that start businesses.
Especially as women, we fear the losses. We don't want to take the risk if it's not a certain outcome. And entrepreneurship is inherently uncertain. And the losses are a part of the game. Just because you have the loss doesn't mean you're not a great builder. There's so many entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley, being the most extreme example, who have had funding on the table and have taken a loss. And so I think as I play more in the entrepreneurial space, I love the fact that your mindset just expands to what is possible. And then it reframes what the game is. It's really never as black and white as wins and losses. It's about building something and learning. and then building something else, and taking the learning forward and not making the same mistakes again.
Enough time has now passed since then that I'm not having like an emotional reaction. I can think about it more analytically and logically. I think two of the biggest learnings out of that venture are I am not an unlimitless resource. Like I just was wired that I can do more, I can do more, I can do more. Like this never satisfied yearning to achieve. And I found out very expensively there is a limit to what I can contribute. And there are some non-negotiable lines that I'm not cool crossing. I want to see my family. My kids are only going to be young once. And yes, my career is very important to me, but my family is even more important. And then second, I need to figure out a way, still a work in progress, to be content, to appreciate what I've achieved, the teams I've built, the things that I care about, and not always be like the what's next, more, bigger, better achievements. I've got to learn to sit in a space of contentness. I don't know why that's been so hard for me. I think I'm getting better at it, but it's still tough because I'm always like, I achieve a goal, I don't even stop to appreciate that before I've set up 5 more goals for myself.
When you figure that one out, please send me the Cliff Note version.
Same.
Do you have a time, and maybe this recent L is an example, like where you were in a setback season, and what did you do to get yourself mentally into more of like your comeback season mentality?
I'll go with one that has probably a happier ending. During COVID, I was in a VP role that I loved with a team I loved doing what I loved. And within the span of 2 weeks, I went from like high achiever, well valued to furloughed. Now, I should have looked and said, well, half the team was laid off and only a subset was furloughed. And I should have like read into that. But I took it so personally. It was such an ego blow to be laid off that I really was like in the dumps. And then you add COVID and all the craziness of that going on. It was just not a good space for me. But the more time I spent away, the more perspective and more introspective I got. And I realized I wasn't truly happy in the position I was in. I got more laser focused on what I wanted. And going into SaaS in the fitness space internationally was a new challenge I wanted to take on. So I reached out, I connected with the founders at GlowFox. I stalked them until finally Connor gave me a meeting and it was instant synergy. And I was fortunate enough to join that team in late 2020. And it has been amazing ever since then. Stressful, busy, complicated, but truly wonderful. And ultimately, obviously, we got acquired by ABC. So it went from like feeling like I'd failed, that the industry was rejecting me, to a much better path than I could have ever imagined to be on.
What I love about that story is it seems like you got clear about what you really wanted. And then you just proactively went after that, instead of, I think a lot of people, if they hit a layoff, their first action is to go onto the job boards and react to the jobs that are posted on the job boards. And that is just such a black hole of existence. And I think you could really deepen your setback season by having yourself in like this reactive role of like, find a role, apply, versus doing exactly what you did, where like, what role do I really want? And then let me like proactively connect with that human who could like create that role for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I preach LinkedIn. Your network and your presence there is so important. And the time to do that is when you're happy, when you're content in a role, you're happy with the company you're working with and your team. You don't do that when you're fired or laid off or COVID hits and you're like, oh my God, I have to find my next thing. That network of people should already be there before you need anything. And you should be helping people. You should be aligning them with jobs and all of those things, because at the point you need it, you want that network there for you. So LinkedIn can be a powerful tool.
1000%. And it breaks my heart when people post on LinkedIn and their post is like, I'm looking for a job in marketing. I'm like, I know a gazillion people in marketing, but like, what do you want to do? In what industry and what specific aspect of marketing? What is your superpower? Like, give me a little bit more to go off of so that I can recommend you to an appropriate person, because it's really hard as a referrer to just kind of take a very broad brush like that and attach my name to say like, yes, I recommend this person. I don't know if that's going to be a good fit because you haven't like specified what exactly you're trying to do. So I love that you proactively moved with probably a little bit of audacity to like connect with this person like multiple times. Like, no, you really need to talk to me. I really want to do this global role.
I mean, what's the worst that can happen? Like you get ignored. That's probably what's going to happen if you apply for most jobs online too. And then take the time to be authentic. Like I didn't send an email that was a canned email I was sending to every single person. This was a message targeted to what I want and who I wanted to connect with. I mean, look, you and I very tangentially knew each other pre-LinkedIn, but I know you or feel like I really know you based on our LinkedIn interactions and your posts and the times that we've been in the same spaces together. So it can be a powerful connector if you're willing to put in the effort.
Yeah, 1000%. If you had to choose a career that was not in the fitness industry, what would you be doing?
Well, during that period when I was furloughed, when I was feeling very sorry for myself, I had an opportunity at Amazon to run a fulfillment center. And I am so glad I did not go forward with that. I think I would have been miserable. Fitness is truly where my passion lies. But if fitness disappeared overnight, it would be something in business, whether it be on the operational side for a company that I truly cared about what we were providing to the world. I think that is why I'm so passionate about fitness. It's not because I like to work out myself. That's great. It's because I truly believe in the product that we're putting out there. So it would be something in operation for a company that had a product I could care about. I don't know, whether that be like getting healthy food to people or sustainability or just something where I could feel good coming to work every day.
That's why people don't leave the fitness industry, because you kind of like maybe look around and you're like, what else could I do that would feel really purpose driven? And you're like, oh no, there's nothing else.
What about doing customer success for like a company that provided like packing materials? It's still the
Right.
same job,
Right.
but it wouldn't feel the same.
Right. 100%. So, are there any goals that you're pursuing, either personally or professionally? And is there any help that you need that you want to put out into the universe?
Super passionate, as you know, Jess, about women in leadership, women in tech. So serve with two other wonderful ladies on our Women in Tech Plus panel at ABC. So laser focused on not just this next level of leadership in fitness, but specifically females. So anybody that you know that you could connect me with that also has a passion that maybe we could do work together, super interested in that. And then on the professional side of things, we are growing exponentially at ABC. So just staying focused on keeping up with that growth, both from supporting my team, continuing to expand my leadership skills, and then providing the support needed to be really good partners to our customers.
We covered a ton of ground, but you just kind of threw the passionate about mentoring the next generation of women leaders. Do you want to rant for a moment about your experience being a woman in fitness and how that has maybe evolved throughout your career? Or is there anything else you want to rant about to close out this show?
It's probably such an overused phrase right now, but the ability for me to hold space when I was coming up, nobody was holding space for me. Like nobody was advocating for me. Nobody was making sure I had a place in the room. I just want to make sure I do that for others. For most of my career, I was the only female in the room and kind of treated as such. I wish I had stood up for myself in so many different occasions throughout my career. So I think it's just really important as we're fighting for ourselves to look around us and our fellow females in the room and aspiring leaders. Like you need to pull those people along with you. I really wish I'd had a female mentor that did that for me. The other rant, one more. You may feel like you have the best product in the fitness industry, but we're all in the same fight together. So I really despise brands that talk down about other brands, like your secret sauce is better than their secret sauce. It's fine to be proud. It's fine to be competitive. But ultimately, a rising tide truly does lift all ships. And we need to figure out how we serve our communities better together. There really is room for everyone, and we should focus on all getting better within our own domains.
There is so much room for everyone. You would probably know the most recent stat, but it's something like 81% of people underperform on the physical activity recommendation chart. There's just so much opportunity to bring more people into fitness and health and wellness spaces. I do agree with you. I think we all need to kind of join forces to make that all more approachable.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for being here with us today. Thank you for everything that you do for the industry. Thank you for sharing all of your wisdom with us here today on the Society Pod.
Thanks for having me.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Society Pod.